back to the class, everyone. Today, we're going to be talking about roster building again, but in a kind of a very different way. Typically, what we've been doing is we've been talking about the best teams or maybe the fastest characters that you can farm. But today, I want to shed a little bit of light and a little bit of positivity on who I believe are the 5 most underrated characters. Either the characters, they aren't that flashy to begin with, or maybe when they first came out, they were underperforming from what a lot of our expectations are. But that being said, they're really not that bad, and they have to be used appropriately. And again, how this is going to differentiate from our previous roster building videos, the goal here isn't really to rush and farm these characters, but if you have them because they're a requirement for something, you should be using them well. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get to it. The first character we have on our list is going to be Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan is currently getting a lot of really cool light as far as the new releases and series go, so that's pretty cool. But even beyond that, she brings a whole lot when it comes to the Mandalorian team. If you have Maul built up in any way, shape, or form, she's really a prerequisite on the team, not because she's required to unlock him, but once you start digging into what a lot more of her kit does, there are some very simple yet very important mechanics lying underneath here. So both of these two things are just absolutely huge. At the start of the battle, Mandalorian allies gain 20% max protection for each Mandalorian ally until the first time Bo-Katan is defeated. So, do the math here. This is 100% extra protection on every single Mandalorian ally. This ends up being such a massive pain in the butt when you pull up Maul's kit and you realize that he's going to have a taunt jumping around to all Mandalorian allies except himself that is also going to give 50% or 100% defense on top of that. So not only are you having a good base number that they're having to shoot through, but the modifier for defense is also super high, so it makes them just really, really tanky. And the second one, this was super underwhelming when Bo-Katan first came out. It was like, it might as well not even be there. Didn't really do a whole lot. But whenever Mandalorian ally attacks at a turn, Mandalorian allies recover 8% health and protection. And again, there always have been a lot of assists kind of going around in recent times. If you look at really what's happened in the meta for the last 2 years or so, every single time a new character, or rather a new team comes out, you're pretty consistently seeing at least one character on that team that is going in and calling into assist. But the Mandalorians are built just a little bit different. So when we take a look at what the team actually does, again, despite Bo not having a very flashy unique, she's able to actually come in here and make a really big difference as to what the team can do, because Maul is able to just call everyone into assist over and over and over and over again. So in the very opening part of the battle, which is really not super important because everyone's already at full health, but if we go in here, we get this whole assist that will give everyone all their health and protection back. That one that would give another, I think, so 8 times 4. So we're getting 32% health and protection back every single time, and then you can pretty easily end with max banners. Obviously, that battle wasn't that challenging to begin with, but it's nice to be able to showcase what the ability can actually do. So Bo-Katan, again, doesn't seem to be a super great character at first, doesn't have a lot of flashy things to show off, but her unique does pull a lot of weight. Next up is going to be Embo. Embo is also a requirement for Galactic Legends similar to Bo-Katan, which was not mentioned, but the rough part about Embo is that he just isn't in the essentially best 5 for bounty hunters. The best 5 bounty hunters, you have Bosk, you have Grief, you have Mando, and there are a few other ones that can slot in, and typically it isn't Embo because there's only other Omicrons involved in JC, like Zams, that can come in and take in a better place. But the dude actually holds a ton of utility on pretty much any bounty hunter or scoundrel team, or especially where I'm liking him is Hutt Cartel team. I really like Embo for the Hutt Cartel. I believe he is the best fit, at least currently for my roster, the way that things are shaping out. Gamguard has kind of fallen off incredibly with the fact that Inquisitors really can't, or really don't need any help, whereas before they really did, before countering Jabba. But that being said, he just adds a lot to the team. He has a constant dispel, so if he's ever being called into assist, similar to Ahsoka, he can be able to cleanse everything else off. He does decent damage, nothing world-shattering nowadays, but enough that he can actually make a difference in a battle. I've used SLKR a lot against Jabba. It's actually been my main counter, and the comps, even in GAC, forget the TW Omicron, even in GAC, he causes the most issues, because if you start to dig into his kit with a lot of what he has here, he's immune to critical hits, so your ult is being slowed down that way. He's constantly gaining foresight, so you're getting less hits in on that front. And then he has just a ton of survivability between the, again, not being able to be crit and the foresight, that he lasts forever and he's able to do a lot of really nasty things. Not to mention when he unlocks his payout, he's constantly getting his 2 turns in, and then whenever he's able to hit a target twice, he's going to have your boosh come in and assist twice on top of that. So again, I feel like he got a bad rap. He came out at a time when we just didn't really need better bounty hunters, or he didn't make enough of the relevant counters at the time. He didn't shift them quite enough, but still overall a very good character. And if you have him, really should be looking for a utility place for him. Again, not terrible on, say, just a generic BAM or Dash Scoundrel team. Next up is going to be Cam, and Cam, his really critical issue when he first came out was the fact that his event was so stinking hard to complete. In fact, it's really not easy now if you don't understand all the underlying mechanics. Luckily, there were a lot of great resources out there in the community that really eventually made the event trivial, but until getting those resources, it was just a massive pain. That being said, we have him now in game. He's super cool. He's great. He does a lot on pretty much any Jedi team that you can put him on. I love having him on Jedi Master Luke team because if you look here at his basic ability, whenever he's called in, he is going to attack twice if he's in a Taru form, which is the one he starts in. Hopefully I didn't butcher that. And if you bring him with Jedi Master Luke, you throw him first with Jedi Master Luke's lead ability, which is supposed to decrease their damage by like 95%, but plot twist with Cam, it only does it on the first hit. So your second hit is coming in and dealing pretty much full damage on top of that. So, you know, the Jedi Master Luke's true damage from his protection is going to deal damage, and then this will deal damage again, making him a really valuable character because he hits so sticking hard, both from his base stats as well, from a lot of what his uniques do on top of that. Other really great utility for him is if, let's say, you're a mid-game player and you're just starting to unlock him. You don't have him 7 stars, so you can't have him relics, you can't put a Datacron or anything fancy on him, but you have him. If you go in here and you give him his Zeta, I almost called that a lead Zeta because it looks like it, and you add the 30 speed onto this, all you have to do now is throw him in your random Qui-Gon Jinn team for GAC, and that 30 speed is going to essentially turn into 900 offense for the entire team, because how Qui-Gon Jinn's lead works, it takes whatever speed you have, multiplies it by 30, turns it into an offense, and suddenly your Jedi Knight Anakin is hitting even harder than he was before, which was already very hard. And this offense, or the offense that he's adding just normally, this 20%, that'll even be converted when Qui-Gon Jinn dies. Unfortunately, the one from Speed doesn't because he got nerfed. But still, overall, great utility if you have Jedi Master Luke. 3v3 is not bad as well. Like, I've seen things done with Jedi Knight Revan, I've seen things done with Bastila. Probably not even terrible with JMK, but there's typically a better fist. So he has a lot of homes, and ultimately it's just really good. You shouldn't feel bad if, again, if you only have a gear 11 or 4-star or something like that. He is usable, at least in some game modes. Next up is going to be Bam. Again, Bam kind of got a bad rap. When he first came out, his event was really shining because of Mandalorian Season 2. People were expecting something really good. CG has actually facilitated a lot of ways to be able to get the event by leaving it in the journey guide from day one, as well as helping us figure out shards. And then it came out and like people didn't gear him or get the turn order right, and he kind of really fell short of expectations in that way. But since then, he's aged super stinking well. One of the things that makes him just ultimately valuable both on his own team and on others is this Scoundrel one, where every single time, I think it's actually a combination of the two, so between is unique. Every single time a Scoundrel ally falls below 75% health, which is a really good margin, by the way, that's when they're actually going to be in danger. Different from Aphra, who has like an Omicron that I think when they fall below 20% health, which at that point, like, their character's probably dead. Like, you don't get that margin, but 75 is actually very good. So every single time a Scoundrel does that, you get to pop up and Wonder of the Force, you get to use it, and you get to put damage, not just damage immunity, but undispellable damage immunity on someone, which is a great mechanic. It has aged, again, very well on Scoundrel teams. You can use him under his own lead, kind of when he first come out, when you first get him. He can eventually even graduate to a Maul team, where he's even better. With the mechanic that we showed earlier with the taunt swapping around on a Maul team, ends up being super gross when the taunt gets stuck on a character that also has damage immunity, and they can't get it off because it keeps coming back. And even in the super end game, using him on a Rey team really make things difficult for Starkiller, along with IG and Queel, it just becomes amazing. So overall, a very good character. He's been underrated. He's had a lot of kind of unfair nicknames attributed to him, but again, whether you're just unlocking him and you throw him with random scoundrels, Embo, or if you're trying to be more endgame-ish and stop a premium or a really good counter like Starkiller versus Rey, it's also an option. And last and probably most controversial is going to be the Grand Inquisitor. So the prevailing issue, and this is actually still an issue with the Grand Inquisitor, is that while most people won't sit here, well, there's some people who won't sit here and say he's just garbage. The issue is that he requires 5 new characters, of which are just now being accelerated, and all of which require a very high amount of Cairo. That being said, once you actually get him loaded and going and get him with the right turn order, with the right mods, and the right team comp, they do some really dirty things, even outside of TW. I've been using him to counter Jedi Master Luke pretty consistently in both 5v5 and 3v3, although I think there are some comps that can kind of mess that up. He is a really shoo-in for any of those super turbo speeded Qui-Gon Jinn teams where they put like 160 speed on all the characters so they go before and rip your Bad Batch or whatever else exists out there apart. And overall, it just has added a lot to my overall roster viability. He starts to draw out certain counters that would otherwise be valuable in other places. One of the main comps right now that's being used to beat him is Traya. Traya is a super high valuable counter for me. It's actually a team that I prefer to have on defense just because it's so hard to pick apart. And there's also the really important thing, I guess this is similar to Bo-Katan as well as Embo. He's not required for a Galactic Legend, but he's required for Reva. And right now, the current game, if nothing's changed from the time I'm recording this, is pretty much a Galactic Legend Plus. And I don't want to like get into the weeds of why that should not be the case. But right now, it's reality. And you can't get Reva without Grand Inquisitor. So, again, similar tone as the rest of these characters. When you get a hold of them, don't underrate them. Actually start to put them to good use. Don't forget their mods. Don't forget their teams. Actually, you know, do the work. See where they can go. See where they can benefit your overall roster. And then make it happen. But yeah, so that is it. Let me know what other characters we missed. I know that there's a lot of underrated ones along the way that I probably myself have even underrated that go beyond what we've currently seen here. But as always, thanks for watching and stay awesome.